Owning land in Nigeria is not a small feat. The vast majority of people living in Nigeria are not able to purchase land, gradually build it, or even buy outright a completed building. For the small percentage of Nigerians that are able to do it, outside of the ultra wealthy, they have to save money over many years, have the cash in their hand for every single level of purchase. It means to buy the land, they would use their own actual cash, and then they gradually build the entire house. They do the foundation, which might last for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on their income levels and how much disposable income they're able to put together after meeting the pressing needs of their lives. And it is very common in Nigeria that people eventually complete their house after about 20, 30 years of their working life, because they have to gradually save some money, buy a piece of land, gradually save some more money, do the foundation, some more money, and on it goes. And if there is any situation in life that happens, things that you do not foresee, like maybe there is a sickness or you need to pay tuition or inflation catches up to some of the savings, you have to reprioritize and put your funds to the more pressing issues. So this is the commonplace situation. Now, we go one step further and we find that in some cases, a couple years after, you have this person who has saved all their lives and they're now in their 50s, they finally moved into this house. Remember that this is even the smaller percentage of the country, because majority are not even able to own a property. Now, these people who have served either in the private sector or in different government roles eventually move into these homes expecting to have a quiet life in their retirement and be able to have dignity, because shelter is one of the key foundational needs of man. And what you find in some cases is that the bulldozers arrive and they're not trying to pave the road, they're not trying to do some repairs, they're actually coming to pull the building down. And when you investigate, you find out that in some cases, these homes, these lands were developed on areas that have been marked by the government for waterway drainage, for right of way, for water, for stormwater collection, for green areas and other prioritized infrastructure of the government. And this story is very commonplace, and you see a lot of pictures where you see devastated people who are looking helpless as their life's blood, sweat and tears are being pulled down by these bulldozers and task forces of different governments who have come to enforce the building lands and environmental regulations. When you take a breath and you think about it, you start to realize that there might be something fundamentally wrong with that approach. The approach that lets people who have saved all of their lives and all of the little savings, the approach that effectively enforces existing land and property laws after all of this painful investment have been done. And this is where the real conversation for today is going to focus. This is not to debate the fact that there are regulations, rules, and laws that every person who wants to buy a land, who wants to build a property, needs to follow. This is not to debate or negotiate compliance on the part of every single person in the country. However, we have to look at this challenge in a very holistic, humane, but practical way that ensures that people whose livelihoods have been essentially deposited into building these homes for which they expect they will have quiet and dignity in their later years, that these people's investment, their life's worth, their life savings do not go down the drain. On the other side, we want to make sure that people are not building in water's right of way, that they're not building where we're supposed to have stormwater and collectors, which would in turn create flood, as we see in many parts of the country, where there is an opportunity or space to build the necessary infrastructure to mitigate these concerns. So why do we not flip it on its head and go on a proactive approach. When you ask many people why this has happened, why have they bought this land that belongs to the government, that is not meant for this type of development, they will tell you that they did not know. And what you find quickly is that we do not have a very clean, clear, transparent, verifiable data source. If you wanted to buy a piece of land today, there is no singular place you could go to look and get information about that piece of land. The history of ownership, the government plans as it affects that particular piece of land, there is no single place to aggregate all of this information to find it. And even today, the current systems by which you could do those investigations are often very convoluted. They're very cumbersome, they take forever, and they overall do not speak of a country that is trying to unleash a huge economic force into the country. Think of me as a developer. I want to build houses and I want to acquire a piece of land. If it's going to take me 6-7 months to get all of the information that I need for that piece of land before I'm able to start to build, I am likely going to take my capital away and go to another place where it's going to take days, in some cases hours, in the worst case maybe 1 week or 2 to get all of the information, all of the documentation, and I can invest my funds. If I am borrowing money from the bank to do the construction, then it means every single day that I'm sitting on my hands, I'm putting my funds at risk because I'm accruing interest at a punishing rate and I'm not able to put it to work so that it will generate any kind of cash flow, let alone profit. The Federal Minister of Housing mentioned very recently that as much as 90% of land in Nigeria are not registered. In one of the states in Nigeria, the commissioner in charge of this aspect of the economy decried the situation where in the last 6 years, only about 246 applications have been made for C of O. C of O is Certificate of Occupancy. It's a title document for a piece of land that recognizes officially by the government that you are the rightful owner of a piece of land. So it tells if in the entire state there's only been about 246 applications in the last 6 years, it means that most people are just proceeding to building without necessarily regularizing and documenting and letting the government be aware of the fact that they own their respective property. And so the solution that we're trying to propose is a solution that provides one repository where all of the records of the land in a particular state. Nigeria has 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. And the solution is about how every state could create a mapping of the state that shows every piece of property and the ownership. And the easy place to start, the government has a master plan. Every state government has a plan that shows where there's going to be future road infrastructure, where there is right of way for water, for drainages, for water collectors, for stormwater collectors, areas that have been demarcated because there are gas pipelines running under, and other encumbrances or future plans of the government. So before we start to talk about personal property and how to do the allocation, we start with the government. The government can say, this part here, there's going to be a future highway here. This area is demarcated as a government reserved property. No one can purchase it, such that if I were to go on a website, say for example, we take Imo State as an example. If Imo State were to design this website that is already geo-mapped based on landed property that are already demarcated for government use, I could go in there, say we call it imolands.com. This is an illustration. If I go to imolands.com, then I can see in every area, if I'm interested in buying a piece of land in Owerri, for example. Owerri is the capital of Imo State. and I go to Owerri and I go to a particular street that I'm very interested in, at the very minimum, I can see on that map if there's going to be some highway that the government has demarcated to say this area is not for sale to anyone, and there should be no transaction around it because this has been demarcated for future development. I can see that immediately. I can see where there'll be drainages. I can see portions of the land that are exclusively reserved for government use. And what does that do? It removes a situation where after 30, 40 years of buying land, of building it over many years, and moving in there, it prevents the heartbreak that I could potentially experience when I'm told one day that I'm building in the floodplains and my building has to be demolished because there has to be a path for water. And that is the key piece of where this solution begins. Now, the other question would be, who is going to do all this work? And I say, we're back to the first episode on Naive Nigerian, where we talked about the NYSC. If you've never heard of the NYSC, we have an episode that is dedicated exclusively to the NYSC, where we talked about how the NYSC is going to become the brain box, the powerhouse that really drives a lot of the transformation in Nigeria. So in every state of the Federation, NYSC members are deployed annually to every state of the Federation. And in some states, there are as much as 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 core members that go to each state. So the state could come in and look for people who have studied urban and regional planning, architecture, estate management, people who have studied IT, different courses in computer science and information technology, people who have studied geography, a lot of all of these courses, people who have taken time to learn about these things, who are able to then be formed into teams. Like we formed a team potentially for agriculture, 200 people team. We could also go ahead and form a team here of another 200 core members. And this team will work very closely with the Ministry of Lands and Housing and Environment and Infrastructure in their respective states. And what we do is we bring these young people, we look for people amongst them who have the skills to use software to do geomapping of the state. And because the state has information about where the drainages are supposed to be, where the floodplains are, where the right of way for stormwater is supposed to be, where collectors are supposed to be, that information already exists with the state government. It's not new information. Most of them are existing in documents and papers and files and folders all across the ministry, saddled with this responsibility. And so we can hand over these documents, this information, under the supervision of 1 or 2 or 3 members of that Ministry of Lands, and they can work with this team of 200 and say, here are all of the drainages that we have across the state. These are the culverts, these are the floodplains, these are the collectors, these are where we're going to have future highway construction. We need this to be placed on the map of the state. This could be a 2-year project where the goal, Rome is not built in a day, but we can see progress on a daily basis. And with every week, we set targets and we can meet, core members can meet and present their progress to the managers from the ministry of each state. And they can note what the progress is, where they're stuck, what needs to be done. And in a year, we're able to see a version of the map that says, hey, listen, the capital of the state is mapped. We have mapped 20 or 30% of other places, and the rest are still in the works. If we multiply this across every state of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory, what we will get is, for starters, a website that contains the map of the state or the Federal Capital Territory with all of the portions of the property of the state that is designated exclusively for government use. By setting that baseline, we have achieved a fundamental milestone that prevents potential loss of people's lifetime investment in building a home for themselves for their later years. And then we start to map over it specific properties of people, businesses, corporate bodies whose ownership are not in dispute. And this can be done iteratively over and over again until over a period of 3 to 5 years, you can have a really dense map that contains sufficient information about property ownership and their status. And somebody will say, I don't want a random person to be able to go on the website and see that I am the owner of this property. Of course not. Privacy of people, individuals, businesses, and corporate bodies will be respected. It will show that this property is owned, that it has a title, and it is not for sale. If you are approached by somebody who claims to be the owner of the property and wants to sell to you, you're able to go on the website. Even the state could make it be behind a paywall. You can go on the website, pay a little token to be able to see that the land is indeed not in the way of any government reserved portion of the state, which is key. You could check that yourself. But further, you could also check to confirm that indeed it has a title, it has a present ownership, and because you have that information, you're then able to request for the salesperson who is trying to sell to you the information that they have, and you have a service on the website where you can run the information they gave you and verify if indeed that information corresponds to the property. And because you're able to search in the process of a transaction, you can tell exactly if this property belongs to the person who claims to be the owner, and if that property is not standing in the way of any future government development. By doing that, we have achieved two levels of progress. One is we almost entirely eliminate situations where buildings are being demolished. So we remove that destruction of economic input in the economy, which is extremely important. We remove the devastation of Nigerians who have spent the better part of their lives to save to build these homes, who will then lose everything in their old age with nothing to resort to and no compensation because they're in violation of some government rules. We've removed that. The third is we have accelerated the pace by which developers, builders, investors in our economy can quickly get through the verification process and know the status of property that they're trying to buy, the true ownership, and if the information they have is indeed reliable and trustworthy. Because we've been able to do that, we're able to unleash a really huge economic force into the country, and we're going to shorten the time span between the intention to invest in land and related real estate in Nigeria and when the shovel actually hits the ground. And where it gets even better as we take it one step further is the state devising a process for land documentation and registration that is accelerated, because now we have a map that shows ownership, that shows title, that shows current status of different pieces of property. It means future checks when the owner is about to sell to another is easy. Transfer of ownership is easy because when the ministries check in to see the history of ownership, they can reference the map, they can see how it's moved, and it's easy to effect the latest transaction. And who are the people who would help with facilitating and speeding up this documentation process? It is the NYSC. We could create an army that works again in the Office of Ministry of Lands and Housing, that collects these applications, that sorts them into the right categories, that ensures that they're connected right into the right chain based on how the GIS mapping has been done on each property, and you can have that team sitting there. Some have asked that core members are only there for 1 year. What then happens when they leave? The beautiful thing about the NYSC as it is set up in Nigeria today is that core members are supplied in batches. A group of 2,000-3,000 comes into, say, Enugu State, and after 3 or 4 months, there is another batch. They call them batch B. They come in and join that team, and after another 3-4 months, there's a third batch called the batch C, and then they come in. So what it means is that if I'm the batch A person working on this project, 3 months from now, another person is going to come shadowing me, working with me, giving me more speed together, because we're doubling our effort. And what it means is when I'm finished with my service here and I'm going on to other things, they have 3 months yet to serve before they leave, and they can seamlessly take over. And by the time they are leaving, another one from batch C has 6-7 months of shadowing all of these activities, understanding it and contributing, and they're able to continue. And by the time they leave, the next batch comes in, and on it goes. So we have a conveyor belt that is reliable and continues to supply these young, smart, energetic Nigerians who are able to take over this work and keep it on a sustainable level. And because we continue to have people cycle through the system, we also have drastically reduced opportunity for corruption or exploitation, because the moment I stop being a core member, I no longer have access to all of these data. I do not have any right to be involved in it anymore. There is no real value for anyone to then try to involve me in some underhanded scheme. If we know today that when we apply for a title for our property, we are already able to quickly check on a website that shows the mapping of the state. We're able to quickly verify ownership and verify the data that the seller gives us on that website, and it confirms that this is valid and it's correct. So we know we're dealing with the right person. Then we submit our application for our own registration after our transaction, and we know that in 10 days, for example, this documentation passes through every stage and it gets to the table of the governor, and it is signed by the governor or his designated person in 10 days or 15 days. We could even start at 2 months. If everybody knows today that it takes 2 months, but it is a confirmed 2 months, it never takes more, it might be earlier, then everyone can build the 2 months into their schedules. They can confidently plan around it. And we're going to have an uptick in people applying for registration of their property. We're going to have uptick in economic activity. We're going to have uptick in a lot of real economic movement that is positive for the economy. And we get to protect our elderly people who have invested in building a house over many years. This is the solution that is being discussed. I'd like to hear your thoughts. You can put it in the comments. You can share it around. We're everywhere, and everywhere we're having the conversation, we will definitely be looking forward to all of the conversations on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, on X. We'll be there engaging to develop this conversation. Perhaps you have some ideas, or you want us to discuss a particular item to kind of come up with a solution. Please feel free to throw it out there. I will definitely be personally looking at it. Until the next one, where we'll come up with another solution, a practical one that leverages what we already have, that does not require new spending, that does not require a new agency. Until we come up with the next one, keep thinking solutions, and let's keep building Nigeria. Thank you.